Okay, I think we'll get started now. That's given people a bit of time to get in, and we can keep adding people as we go. Like I said at the start, thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar on World Ocean Day. Today, we're joined by the Marine Conservation Society, who are going to give us the presentation today. We've got Anne, Misha, and Sarah, all from the Marine Conservation Society, and Anne, who is the Corporate Partnerships Team Lead, will be presenting today. Just a little bit about our relationship with the Marine Conservation Society here at Paper Round. We've been working with them for about 5 years now. We do give financial donations, but we also support in different campaigns that they do, such as Turning the Tide on Plastics, that was a few years ago, and also we do beach cleans along the River Thames, which is one of the main things that we're going to be speaking about today. So thank you all again for joining us, and if you could all just make sure you're all on mute whenever you join. And I'm just going to hand over to Anne now, who's going to talk about ocean pollution and their Beach Watch program.
Thank you so much, Rory. And hello, everyone, on this wonderful World Ocean Day. Yes, so I will be giving a short presentation on the charity, on the Marine Conservation Society, and the work that we do before focusing a bit more on our work with regards to ocean pollution, and then giving a bit of an introduction to how people can get involved in some of the work that we do. The Marine Conservation Society is one of the leading marine conservation charities in the UK. We've been around for well over 30 years now. We originally actually started in a shed of a very passionate diver who saw the trouble that was facing the ocean, as I said, nearly 40 years ago, and who founded the Marine Conservation Society originally. We are now a 100 plus strong crew of people who work across various different marine conservation subjects, from ocean recovery, so looking at underwater protection, such as marine protected areas, marine conservation zones. But we also look at things like seabed restoration. So some of you may have heard of projects like Help the Kelp in Sussex, which is an ocean reforestation program where we're trying to bring kelp forests back to life. And we're also involved in various different seagrass restoration and oyster restoration projects along the UK coastline. I will share a bit more about some other areas of our work, but as an organization as a whole, we fight for the future of our ocean by driving political, cultural and social change through people-powered action. So we are fundamentally a scientific organization, and the work that we do is all very much evidence-based and research-based, but at the center of all the work that we do is our connection with people, because we understand that without communities wanting to help protect the ocean and know a bit more about the ocean, there won't be a healthy ocean and a healthy planet. Now, why are we talking about ocean pollution today? We know that plastic pollution is a massive problem in the seas in general. You will have probably seen the plastic gyres across the UK seas, but also internationally, where islands as large as France are floating, for example, in the Pacific Ocean, all made up of plastic. And we have a huge issue with regards to the amount of plastic that gets dumped into the ocean every year. So we estimate that at least 8 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every year. And it's not just a problem for us with regards to the actual pollution of the seabed and animals digesting plastic particles. It also generates greenhouse gases as the plastic disintegrates in the sea. One of the things that I also want to add to this is when we talk about disintegration of plastic materials in the sea, it will never disappear. So every single piece of plastic that was ever produced is still on this planet. It's not disappeared, and it will never disintegrate.
I think I've put that in my documents.
Oh. Could you put yourself on mute, please? Sorry. There we go. Oh. Okay, thank you very much. So as part of our work to fight the growing issue of plastic pollution in the seas internationally, but obviously with our remit within the UK seas, we have a Clean Seas team that sits alongside the teams like Ocean Recovery, who I talked about before, but also our Fisheries and Aquaculture team, our parliamentary teams that work on making legislative changes with regards to ocean pollution and plastic pollution and other issues facing the ocean. And we also have a really large-scale engagement team that works with people to raise awareness for the ocean and the issues that the ocean faces and how people can get involved. Again, I will share a bit more about that in a minute. So our Clean Seas team has one big ocean goal. We want to have a clear downward trend of ocean pollution by 2030. We are part of the 30 by 30 initiative, which is a global conservation initiative, and within our specific remit of looking after the UK seas and the UK overseas territories, which we are also hosting some programs in, we want to make sure that we have a clear downward trend of all different types of pollution, not just plastic pollution, in the seas. And we also campaign to stop pollution entering the ocean. So whilst we are keen to remove the litter that's already been dumped in the ocean from the beaches and the sea itself, we also want to make sure that those types of pollution that end up in the sea don't even get there in the first place. So I want to address some of the key areas of our Clean Seas work, because this is what I think we've worked with Paper Round on before in terms of the campaigns that they've supported, and which I think is also of interest to the wider audience today. The Clean Seas team is concerned not just with plastic pollution, but also with chemical pollution and other different types of materials that end up in the sea and that have a massive impact on the health of our ocean. Pollution has been reported to be one of the main 5 drivers of the current biodiversity crisis, and we know that at least 40% of marine mammals are threatened by extinction because of the types of pollution that we have in our seas. And therefore, the Clean Seas team has a very wide remit to look at different types of pollution that end up in the ocean, and again, to try and stop them at source before they even end up in our waterways. So one of the campaigns that we've been running for many years now, which is mainly focused on the governments of the UK. So all the nations in the UK have been talked to by us. We run campaigns. We try and gather support in the parliaments to call for a UK-wide deposit return scheme, so that we can make sure that the types of plastics that are recyclable can be recycled and will be recycled through a deposit return scheme across all the nations in the UK. We know that the Scottish government, for example, has already agreed to having a deposit return scheme implemented. However, the start date has been postponed for a number of years now, and the rest of the UK are sort of trying to follow suit, but we're not quite there yet. So we're looking at further campaigning on getting those deposit return schemes implemented. We also not only look at things like higher recyclability rates, but also looking at supporting industry and supporting our partners with reusable alternatives, especially when it comes to single-use plastic. We term single-use plastic any type of plastic that is not intended to be reused. And so our experts in the Clean Seas team often work with our industry partners to look at packaging and material alternatives to single-use plastic items that they will have in their supply chain and also within their product ranges. Another core area that we work on is chemicals. So we have a full-time chemical scientist who has been working again with industry partners, but also with governments now that we've exited the European Union, on the post-EU chemical legislation, because we have in the UK, but also internationally, a host of so-called PFAS chemicals, which are also termed forever chemicals, that are used in all sorts of different things, from waterproofing clothing to coating in pans that you use for cooking to fire retardants in mattresses and furniture. And there's over 4,000 of these. And we know that from the composition that all of them have is once they end up in the waterway, they don't break down. They only accumulate in the marine environment, and they seriously harm marine mammals. So marine mammals will develop growths and tumors from it. We also understand that their reproductive cycle is severely inhibited. So one of the things that we're trying to influence is that these chemicals will only be used for exceptional uses, and that for any type of material where we can use other chemicals or other materials other than PFAS to have the same kind of effect or outcome, we remove PFAS chemicals. And this is something that, again, we work on, as I mentioned, with industry partners, but also with regards to chemical legislation post-Brexit. We also have, which is maybe not quite as a I was going to say a sexy topic with regards to things that end up in our sewage systems. So as you may have heard, we have so-called fatbergs that occur in sewage systems on a regular basis. And what happens with those is that things get flushed down the loo or pop down the drain that shouldn't get down there in the first place. And then when we have, for example, localized flooding, these fatbergs hinder water flow in the sewage systems, which then result in a lot of raw sewage being disposed straight out into the ocean. So last year, for example, in Scotland, we have noticed a huge increase of wet wipes being found on the beaches, partly because people flush them down the loo, and wet wipes are made of plastic. The majority are made of plastic, so that, again, they will not disintegrate and they just clog up the waterways in the domestic and commercial environments. So we have had a campaign running again for a number of years now to, first of all, completely ban plastic-based wet wipes, but also looking at biodegradable alternatives or alternatives that have no direct link with wet wipes. We've also just published a report on sludge and slurry. So a lot of the chemicals that are used in intensive farming and monoculture and agriculture sectors, those chemicals get washed off the fields and obviously again end up in the waterways, and a lot of these chemicals seriously harm the marine environment. So one of the things that we're looking at the moment is to develop that area of our work a bit further. We also collaborate with industry on reducing microfibers and other microplastics entering the waterways. So some of our work that we've done in the past years has been instrumental in banning microplastics from cosmetic products. But we also have microfibers as a massive challenge to the marine environment. Microfibers are shed from any type of organic material clothing that gets washed in washing machines. And from recent PhD research of one of our supporters, we know that about 700,000 microfibers can enter the waterways from one single domestic washing machine cycle, which obviously is a huge problem because these microfibers do not get washed out or selected or removed in the water cycle when they come to the sewage treatment work. So they go straight out into the sea, and they will then be eaten by microorganisms and plankton, which then travels up the food chain. And again, as it travels up the food chain, it accumulates in the bodies of the marine animals, and then often actually starts ending up in human food cycles as well. So those are some of the core areas of our Clean Seas team's work. There's quite a few other things that they work on as well, but the team is actually still quite small. And though we're expanding our resources on this, these are the core elements that we're working on for now. All of these types of campaigns and work, they're supported by our parliamentary and comms teams, because again, whilst we're doing a lot of scientific work, we also need to have the public engagement and the partner engagement on those programs of work. And we also need to make sure that the legislation reflects some of the changes that we want to see. One item that I just want to share, which has been really fantastic, is we've collaborated with a washing machine manufacturer recently who has launched the world's first ever washing machine, which has an inbuilt microfiber filter, so that those microfibers that I just mentioned, that they get filtered out from the washing cycle and don't end up in the waterways. And not only have they created the first washing machine with such a microfiber filter, they've also made the technology open source so that other washing machine manufacturers can follow suit. So sometimes our corporate partners are actually ahead of the curve when it comes to implementing legislation to support the marine environment. Now, how do we tackle beach litter and other types of pollution once it has ended up in our seas? Our engagement team runs a program that's a year-round program called Beach Watch. Beach Watch is basically made up of thousands of volunteers who help us year-round remove plastic litter and other types of litter from UK beaches. What makes our Beach Watch program unique is that we have a litter survey form. So when volunteers go down to the beach, they not only pick the litter, but they also record every single item of litter that they find. So we can actually then share that data that volunteers have collected with industry and government stakeholders to make the change, to kind of lobby for different materials being used in packaging, for example, to put legislation in place, like, for example, the banning of plastic straw stirrers and cotton bud sticks, which has recently come into force, because we found literally hundreds of those on beach cleans when we were out across the UK. We just from last year, within 1 year, then that was the pandemic year, volunteers spent over 35 hours cleaning beaches across the UK and removed nearly 300,000 litter items worth well over 6 tons. People often say to us, well, that's not a huge amount, 6 tons, but the what you will find is if you ever choose to join us on a beach clean, a lot of the litter that people pick up are really small pieces of plastic and really small pieces of litter, because they will have already broken down in the marine environment and then at some point get washed up on the beach. And this is what we're then picking up. It's lots of really small pieces of rubbish. Part of our Beach Watch program is the Great British Beach Clean, which we've now also hosted for well over 25 years. The Great British Beach Clean is a week-long citizen science event where, again, thousands of volunteers join us across UK beaches and host hundreds of different events where they, again, collect vital litter data for us that we then publish after each event has taken place. The event takes place in September each year. And this year's event will be from the 16th to the 25th of September. And we are proud to say that it's the UK's most impactful beach clean engagement event of its kind. Again, due to the fact that all of the litter that we collect gets recorded, and we get a huge media uptake of the results that we publish every year to look at general litter trends and types of litter that have been found. For example, the fact that we found huge amounts of wet wipes on Scottish beaches during last year's Great British Beach Clean have now led to us doing a lot more work with Parliament in Scotland to look at sewage outflows, but also at changing legislation with regards to wet wipe sales. Last year's Great British Beach Clean still showed that 75% of all the litter that we collected was either plastic or polystyrene. However, which has been a really good result, when the litter that we collected across our 100-meter survey stretches, it's actually dropped year on year. So we found 385 items of litter last year compared to 425 in 2020. So those downward trends are absolutely fantastic for us to see. Nevertheless, we still need to look at the types of litter that we find, and plastic and polystyrene are still the major problems in terms of the types of materials that are being thrown into the sea. Plastic cigarette butts, or just cigarette butts that contain plastic, all of them do, were found in Wales. They doubled from 2020 to 2021. And again, this is one of the things that we record and then try and change legislation with regards to potential disposal units, and work on removing some of the materials in particular packaging to ensure that cigarette butts are understood to contain plastic and shouldn't be disposed of on a beach. And wet wipes in Scotland, I already mentioned. Yeah, which I think we understand as an organisation that wet wipes might not necessarily need to be banned, because we know that for certain uses they're really essential for some communities. However, again, we need to look at what they're made up of and making sure that they're labelled properly with regards to how they should be disposed of and not flushed down the loo, for example. I put this slide up. I mean, we used to show some of the images in terms of what marine or plastic pollution does to marine wildlife. I've since kind of decided to remove some of that imagery because it can be quite upsetting. But as I guess probably most of us know, is in terms of what that marine pollution does when it reaches the sea, and also when we find it on the beach, is that marine animals will digest it. And they will often either die from starvation because they think that they have plastic pollution, that they have a full tummy, but their tummy is full of plastic pieces, which then makes them no longer be hungry. And so they might starve from just literally having a stomach that's full of plastic. They can also suffocate. For example, turtles have a mechanism of ingesting food where it can just go one way. So if they, for example, eat a plastic bag, which they often confuse with a jellyfish, they can suffocate on trying to digest that plastic bag. And then entanglement is also another really big issue with regards to plastic pollution in the seas, and especially ghost gear and materials that get dumped in the ocean. How can you support us, and how can we support the ocean? On World Ocean Day, we obviously want to talk about some really positive developments as well. So we've had literally since the Blue Planet 2 aired now quite a few years ago, I think it was in 2017, which is actually when I joined the organization, we've seen a steadily growing wave of support from all different types of parts of UK society, and we want to encourage everyone to come and join us on a beach and participate in beach cleans, either through our Beach Watch program or our Great British Beach Clean. We have volunteers that host beach cleans, so you can join one of those, or you can even start organizing your own, and there'll be training available for you to start organizing your own beach clean if you're near a beach. We're obviously also very happy to organize team beach cleans, where one of our staff members joins us on the beach and hosts a day for you. On those days, you would not only be doing a beach clean, but we can also offer additional activities, like, for example, a seashore safari or a rock pool ramble, where you can find out a lot more about your local marine wildlife. And as a team at work, you can also organize your own beach cleans, and we can provide you with all the equipment that's needed. We often sell volunteer team beach clean kits as well to some of our corporate partners so that they can organize their own. And whenever you purchase one of those kits, one of the cost will support one of our community volunteers to get kitted up as well to be part of a beach clean. This is a lovely photo of a group of volunteers recently who came down to Brighton to help us on a beach clean down there. We know from our social sciences team at the Marine Conservation Society that team beach cleans, or beach cleans in general, not only help the marine environment and remove litter from beaches, it's also really good for our mental well-being. And a lot of companies actually use it as a really vital team building activity now that we are getting back into the office, or trying to reconnect from working at home for more than 2 years. So beach cleaning is a really fantastic activity that you can join us on. If you don't live near the sea, we also have an inland cleaning program called Source to Sea, where similarly to the beach cleans, you would also be given a litter survey form, so you can record the types of litter that you find, and you can easily do this type of activity either in the park, on your local street. Rory earlier mentioned riversides as well, so that's another option in terms of beach cleans, because obviously the ocean doesn't start on the beach. The ocean starts at any type of waterway or even inland environment where litter can be blown into a lake, a river, or into the sea itself. So I'm very happy to discuss with any of you after this as well how you can organize your own clean or come along to a team beach clean. What I also wanted to share today is, as it's World Ocean Day, we will have an appeal starting up later on this month, our Wavemaker appeal, which is our most comprehensive funding bid to both the general public and corporate partners to support our core marine conservation programs. So we will be asking for contributions towards our ocean recovery team, our Clean Seas team, who I mentioned earlier, our work in all the nations of the UK with regards to legislation and community engagement, our education team, who works with young children and young adults to give them a voice to share their concerns about the marine environment and find innovative solutions with our support. So there's a whole sort of like host of programs that we hope to generate some funding for. And after this talk, I will share some more information about the appeal as well and how you can get involved both as an individual as well as a corporate supporter. So there are match funding opportunities available as well.